So, hello everybody. Welcome to
Hello.
today's Zoomuse. Hello to Leo. Leo Horthy is our featured poet today on Zoomuse. And just a few words to orient everybody as to what the rules are. Basically, try to keep yourself muted when you're not speaking. And two, we are recording today's session. And that's so that the poor unfortunates that couldn't make it to Leo's reading and the Q&A that follows can watch it later. So those are the two things that we'll be doing. And with that, let me just say a few words about Leo. I really hadn't met Leo until about a week ago by the phone when I was panicking trying to find a poet who wanted to go on Zoomuse. And he very kindly obliged. And so I've been dealing with Leo several times this week in terms of getting his video teaser done. And I hope you've seen that because he comes across as a very comfortable, very reflective person who's been using poetry to understand himself. And he speaks about that very eloquently. But I'm sure Leo will have more to say about that. Basically, how this goes is he will go for about 20 minutes reading and reflecting and talking to us. And then we'll have 20 minutes to ask him questions. So if you have questions, please wait until he's finished, and then we can all start together. So those are the simple rules for Zoomuse. And with that, let me go back to Leo. And I'm going to make you big here, Leo. And now you can go. Everybody, Leo Horthy.
All right. Thank you for the invitation, Andrew. I've only attended one other Zoomuse session, and I was really, it was Ahmed Miles, and I was really inspired by it and immediately wanted to be part of this and had tried to get myself on the list. I don't know if it was successful or not, but then when Andrew reached out to me, I thought, wow, this is wonderful. I really would like to do this. So I really appreciate the opportunity and the ability to share my work. And yeah, so I kind of would like to start with just a moment of quiet for a few minutes, and then I will read a poem which will be partly a prayer, or at least on my part. So if we could just take about 30 seconds to get quiet, and then I'll start. All right. So this is my first poem, and like I say, it's sort of intended as a prayer. And it's titled Instrument. Letting go of attachment, I awake to a deeper truth. Letting go of attachment, I awake to a deeper truth. I am just the instrument. I pray I am played well today. I pray I am played well today. Yeah. So poetry for me was something that came out of my journaling process, although I have written poetry at various points in college. I didn't really start writing regularly until about 3 years ago. In fact, the first entry in my journal with a poem is almost exactly 3 years ago, October 19th. A couple years ago, Emmanuel asked me to contribute a bio to an anthology he wanted to include me in. And I didn't get a lot of details from him what he wanted in the bio. And so I kind of said, oh, well, I'm just going to write my bio as a poem. I felt it was being a little cheeky, but this is Emmanuel, so I felt that was warranted. So this is the poem I wrote. The Accidental Poet. For what it's worth, the accidental poet, Leo, finds catharsis in the poetic form. Finds catharsis in, composing in the poetic form. His words are private, musings of a distressed mind. His words are private, musings of a distressed mind. And yet he is happy to share his verse. So you may also find. So you may also find your truth. And interestingly enough, the next poem is called Truth. Set in ink, my thoughts seem silly. Childish arguments for bad behavior. Set in ink, my thoughts seem silly. Childish arguments for bad behavior. The truth lies deeper. It evades capture and will not be trapped in the form of words. The truth lies deeper. It evades capture and will not be trapped in the form of words. So this is a poem I actually wrote yesterday, and had some good response on Facebook, and so I thought I'd share it today. It's called Who Will I Be Today? The light flutters across the page of my mind. The light flutters across the page of my mind, soothing the anguish, pain from my past. Knowing I can choose, who will I be today? Knowing I can choose, who will I be today? I wonder, will I venture forth from these walls? Will I venture forth from these walls, built for me and by me? Will I venture forth from the? Will I face my fears and let them melt away? Will I face my fears and let them melt away? So a lot of my poems are fairly short, and I find, again, going back to this idea of keeping it simple and keeping it clear, just capturing a single idea and sharing that. And anyway, this one I really like. In fact, I actually came to me while I was at a gathering in Sacramento a couple years ago. It's called Gaps. In the emptiness between stars, in the knowing between thoughts, the gaps where I find truth. In the emptiness between stars, in the silence between notes, in the knowing between thoughts, the gaps where I find my truth. And here's another even shorter one called Bedrock. Bliss in the moment is like bedrock breaking the surface. Bliss in the moment is like bedrock breaking the surface. So the next couple are sort of about as political as I get with my my poetry. These are kind of came up in the last year, given the political situation here in the United States. First one is called Division. politics. In a world of division and polarized politics. A world of fake news and echo chambers. A world of fake news and echo chambers. It feels like the world is ending. Scratching beneath the surface, new ideas. Scratching beneath the surface, new ideas form, and the vista shifts. Stay curious, my friends. Yeah, I always loved the word vista. And my first poetry book, it was my reader when I was in second grade, was called Vistas. And for that reason, I always associate it with poetry, and I'm always happy when I can work. And then the next poem is one that I call Maybe Not. And well, here I go. In this moment, I can let go of reason and be consumed by my fears. In this moment, I can let go of reason and be consumed by my fears. Irrational fears, stripping away my humanity until I become a dark being, destroying the world around me, creating hell for all. Irrational fears, stripping away my humanity until I become a dark being, destroying the world around me, creating hell for all. Maybe I won't do that. This is a poem, it's one of my very few rhyming poems. It's one that came up after a breakup a couple of years back. And yeah, here it is. Thoughts of you. Notwithstanding the pain I have gone through, I still have favorable thoughts of you. I wonder where you are and how life is treating you. The what ifs bubble up and cloud my view. I try to let go, saying it wasn't meant to be, yet my love persists, even though I told you you were free. And this is one of my favorites. It's a little dark, but I still really love it. It's called The Empty Cup. The empty cup that held such promise. The empty cup that held such promise gently mocks me from the nightstand. It says, you thought you were everything, and now you know you are nothing. You thought you were everything, and now you know you are nothing. Embrace the emptiness, for it is the only thing that is true. Embrace the emptiness, for it is the only thing that is true. And this one was sort of switching to a bit of a lighter vein. This one is actually called Light. Where has my light gone? Where has my light gone? Wait, it's right here. I just had to open my eyes. This is one I wrote a little while ago, probably around 7, 8 years ago now. It's called Primary, and it's sort of a investigation of what love is and how I connect to it. Primary. Am I loved? Do I matter? Do others love me? How long will they care? Is it enough just to love myself? And that loving. No, it is primary and can never be taken away. It is primary and can never be taken away, for I am love. This poem is called Always, and it was kind of a sort of a mantra to bring love into my life. Always. In the joy of love, I will find you. The precise moment does not matter. In the joy of love, I will find you. The precise moment does not matter, for we have always been and always will be. Been and always will be one. This one's called Trapped. Caught in a trap between thoughts and feelings, finding both false. Caught in a trap between thoughts and feelings, false. How to find the truth, the space beyond self-justification. How to find the truth, the space beyond self-justification. To be at peace. Can I surrender my power? Can I become vulnerable and open? Eyes, and the dance begins again. Can I surrender my power? Can I become vulnerable and open? The fears arise, and the dance begins again. And the last poem is one called Whole. And this is one I actually set to, I created a little YouTube video out of it with some of my photography. So if you like, I can share a link to that, but called Whole. Whole. In the vastness of my being, I connect with the divine. Finally understanding how the two are one. In the vastness of my being, I connect with the divine. Finally understanding how the two are one. Now knowing the unlimited potential of who I am. Now knowing the unlimited potential. All right, thank you. That's it.
Well, thank you very much, Leo. Everybody's encouraged to unmute themselves. So, Leo, let me lead off with the questions.
Sure.
As I was listening to you read your poems, you're very deliberate, and there seems to, and I see what you're doing with the repetition. You know, when I read, I was thinking if I was to read the poem, I'm not sure I would have the same feeling that I get from your reading it. So my question is, how important is the reading to understand the poem? And when you're composing the poem, do you read it aloud to yourself?
Yeah, I'm typically verbalizing the lines as I'm writing them, and often the lines just come to me. I mean, the two of those lines just came right out of the blue. I was wasn't even ready for them, and they just came, and I just kind of said, okay, I'll just write it down. I can always cross it out if it doesn't work. But even though they don't sort of follow kind of a logical thread within that poem, I felt they added a lot of depth to it. Yeah, so the repetition I was using to emphasize, it's a trick I borrowed from David White, the poet, writing his poems. And I thought it was a really nice way to get people to feel what his intention was from the poem. And I felt I would try that here. I'm interested to hear feedback about that, whether people felt it was helpful or got in the way. So please feel free to share your impressions of that. This is the first time I've actually done something like this, actually reading more than one of my poems out loud at any point. So I'm still experimenting with how to do this, so any feedback from you guys would be helpful. But in terms of the voice and using my voice to express the poem, I'm basically reading the poem as it came to me. But as with any work of art, my invitation to you is to find your own truth. Like I have one purpose for writing these poems. It helps me understand who I am and what's going on for me at a much deeper level than just journaling on its own. So that's my reason for doing it. Sharing them is partly just basically acknowledging that this is a gift I have that is given to me. It's not something that I've created or with my will or my mind. And so since they're a gift to me, I'm willing to share that gift with everyone, other people who may find them helpful or useful or interesting.
Thank you very much. So that's my question. Does anybody else want to talk or say something about Leo's poems? Halima? Hi, Halima. Go ahead.
So, Leo, I really like a couple of the love poems. You know, in the relationship poems.
Right.
They really resonated, and thank you so much for sharing them.
I'm glad that you like them. I had a longer poem that I had in the queue, but I decided to skip over it. Wasn't quite ready to read it at this time. It was also about a breakup, but all these poems are available online. I use a website called Hello Poetry, and I will share a link to that. Also, you can find a lot of them on my Facebook page and my Instagram page. So yeah, you can find these on them or whatever. Hopefully at some point I'll be publishing a book of poems, hopefully with my photos as well. So that's something I've got in the works, although I don't have any timeline at this point.
That would be a good combination, I think. Your poems and your photos, they resonate with each other.
Anybody else? Yes, Susilla.
Oh, yes, I'd like to say thank you very much, Leo. I liked the poem. Well, I was listening attentively to all of them. The repetition was something that I appreciate. It's kind of like a reaffirmation in that sense. And when I write, I use a lot of internal rhyme. And so it's kind of a sister to that repetition. But I also liked Who Will I Be Today? That poem, and I wondered if, and I like the way you enunciate. I like the way you speak. And I don't know if you had, because it lifts the words off the page, so to speak, and so that you're communicating with the listener, right?
Yes.
And I appreciate that. I don't like people mumbling and putting no spaces between their words. And and these days in the pandemic with the masked the masked workers who have accents. It's even more difficult to understand what they might be saying behind their mask. But I really appreciate the clarity of your work, and I wondered if you'd like to comment anything about that. Who will I be today?
Like I said when I wrote it, it was something that it's a poem that I wrote yesterday. Well, I'm a big believer in I can choose. I'm at power in choosing how I show up at any given moment. And actually it's access to, I have sort of three things I do. One is I say I am, and what it is that, what is the affirmations I want to live into. And then I talk about all the things, all the skills and qualities that I want to embody for that day. And then finally, I say, what are the emotions I want to feel? Joy, love and joy and excitement. I mean, it's great to be excited, and every time I write the word excitement, I suddenly feel excitement about my day. It's quite uncanny. And then finally, gratitude. And the one thing I read about gratitude that really struck home was that it's not necessarily happy people who are grateful. It is grateful people who are. It's a big belief of mine that by being grateful for even for things that haven't come to pass yet, that is one of the ways we can channel them and bring them into our lives.
In a way, it's kind of like, I remember taking a workshop with you once at a Congress. I can't remember which one it was. Maybe it was Austria or Australia.
I wasn't in Austria, so it would have been New Zealand or Australia. No, I don't think I was doing. Don't think I did anything. I wasn't doing
New
that yet in
Zealand
Australia.
then, maybe in 2010.
It was probably in New Zealand. Yeah.
Yeah, and so some of the things that you responded with just now are, it reminds me of that. It's kind of like a goal setting in a way each day.
Yeah.
But I do the morning pages too, and I know you reference them in your.
Right, in my teaser, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, that's the idea of it, just really bringing stuff out of the mind. And I find also it's very, very helpful for me to get things out of my head and onto paper or written down in some way. And that creates space for other things to come in. And so I'm not constantly churning over the same stuff again and again.
Good tool.
How many people here have done Julia Cameron's The Artist's Way and tried the morning pages exercise? Oh, you're all veterans, are you?
I tried the morning page.
How long have you been doing the morning pages, Leo?
I started way back, well, it must have been still living in Santa Monica at the time, probably early aughts. So around 2000 or so. But as I said earlier, I felt a little too sort of formal, and so I needed to be a little bit more free form and go my own way, which is pretty much the story of my life.
So what are they? The afternoon pages, you mean?
No, I mean, basically, I'm not writing quite such a structured way. I'm not doing 3 full pages. I'm just doing whatever comes to me in the moment, and meet whatever need I have at that time, that on that morning. I do find mornings are the best time to write. It's just how and when I do it, and whether I do it daily or not is another question.
So are there any other questions for Leo or any other observations? Adrian, go ahead.
I am unmuted. Instead less of a question and more of an observation, Leo, but in my ears, you post so many open questions. And I love the repetition because you ask the same question. Who will I be today? What will I do? And I loved that openness of it. I don't particularly like people presenting me with conclusions. Do you know what I mean? Don't
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So just loved that. And I loved the one especially about the light. It was so short and so simple because it's like an encapsulated my entire life, really. So thank you for that.
You're most welcome. Most welcome. I'm glad they resonate. And
Yeah,
there was a time, and when I wrote my poetry when I was back in college, I did not dare show them to anybody. I was so insecure about it. And when I started writing 3 years ago, it was I care less about what people think of me nowadays. And but even so, I remember I wrote the journaling the following day. It was like, God, what have I done? Is this safe? And I just learned to let it go. And then Emmanuel said to me after a year or so, he said, "Oh, you've got some interesting poems. I'd like to include you in one of my anthologies." So I thought, well, I guess I'm doing something right.
Yes, and just another entirely irrelevant, but maybe not. I was just on the bus today because you did touch briefly on politics. And at the moment in the UK, as it is for you, it is just mind-numbingly awful. And all I could think was, just keep writing. Tell all the poets in the world, just keep writing, keep putting those words on the page, keep them out there, because there is something that touches us slightly deeper, I think, than poetry, than prose or rambling on about things. So yeah, so let's just, keep doing it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Thank you, Adrian. Mara, go ahead.
Hi, Leo. Thank you so much. It really they're so short and so powerful. And in the beginning, I thought, oh, what? And then I sunk into them, and they touched me in a deeper sense, because I think you are really in touch with your inner and the spiritual thought and feeling that comes through your words. And some of them are still in my head. I can't remember all of them, obviously, but if you could post them somewhere, it would be lovely to read them again. And I particularly like the quiet we had in the beginning. I think that's
That's great. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that was probably how you approach your poetry as well, with the quiet before.
Yeah, well, I typically will do a meditation in the morning, and then I will journal, and then once I'm done journaling, I just give space for head, and I kind of work it from there. And often I find that the poem I write reflects what's going for me, and it gets me a much deeper understanding of the actual process of journaling.
Yeah, and it's kind of gives you a sense of self and a sense of self for others as well, so it's,
Yeah.
That's wonderful. Leo, I'm not sure if other of the people here had any problem, but there were times when the audio dropped off. And
I'm sorry.
Well, no, it's nothing. Not your. You're too Canadian. You're saying sorry too soon. No, but what we can do is we can take the text and put that up on screen beside you, so people can see what the words are, and that may help.
Right. Okay. Well, I've got them all as screenshots, because I basically just went through and just snapped them, and so I'll just send that patch to you, and you can then put those up on screen as I'm reading.
Oh, you took screenshots with your phone, you mean?
No,
really?
You can do screenshots on the computer.
Just captures from the computer. Well, that's wonderful. Yeah, please send them to me.
So I'll send all of those. So you'll have to clean them up a bit, because I didn't I was kind of, they got bits and pieces at the top
All
and
right,
bottom.
that's great.
But,
We'll put them up. Cecilia, Wadi, go ahead.
Ismana said in last month that she was hoping to be able to make a book out of these poems, some of the poems that have been read in the Zoomuse series. I don't know how far along that is. I know they're overworked, but so that's something to consider as well.
Yeah, I'm sure that's going to happen, Cecilia Wadi. The poor SICA folks, they're run off their feet with all these plans they have. They're coming up with a series of calendars. And all sounds wonderful, but it's a ton of work to get it done properly. And the logistics are, you know, so they're working on it. And I'm sure, I think Emmanuel has been sort of the guy who normally takes these poems and puts them together in an anthology. So he'll probably do the same. I think he'd love to do the same with Zoomuse. And
Anthology would be good. Yeah.
and in terms of Leo's stuff, his poem, you could even choose particular photos that you wanted to go with your poems if you wanted, Leo. Since you have,
sure.
And some of the other readers have also artwork, or even if they don't have their own artwork, they may have particular pieces of photos they'd like to go with their poems, which is just as good. Right. So yeah, we'll work on that. All in good time. Now that we're,
yes,
I don't know what's happening down there in the poor old USA, but here in Canada, they're tightening the screws again. They're going into a sort of semi-lockdown. The case counts are going up. They want to get a handle on it right away. Yeah. So before we go, Leo, did you want to finish with saying anything about how today went for you?
So this is sort of about, I guess, sort of about 20 of my poems. I have 50, including all of these, up on a website called Hello Poetry. And I'll send that link to Andrew so you can go and find all of these there. And also I'll give him the link to the one that I turned into a YouTube video. And yeah, the other thing is that I'm toying with the idea of setting up a mailing list to sort of send out daily poems to people. Is that something anybody here would be interested in?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll also include a link for that, give that to Andrew, and hopefully he can then share it back with the Zoomuse community.
We need something to counter our news feeds, Leo.
Right.
That's right. That's exactly right.
Well, the trick is to unsubscribe from everything.
All right.
At least that's been my trick anyway.
I'm going to have to go. I'm sorry.
All right.
It was
Listen,
one.
thanks.
Thank you so much.
And thanks to everybody showing up.
Yeah, and I do want to get a poem a day.
Okay, good.
So we're going to take
So I will send it.
Leo, and that'll.
Yeah. Okay, good.
Okay.
And the next Zoomuse, we're not sure when it's going to happen. We have been trying to go weekly. We did miss last week, but Leo will be the last one for October. And in November, I think we'll cut back to 2 Zoomuse events per month. And see if that's the Goldilocks situation. So our poor volunteers can do that.
I think that's a reasonable schedule, Andrew.
Yeah.
Instead of every Friday.
Every Friday's too much.
It sure is for me. Anyway, so I'm not sure, all of which is to say we don't know when the next Zoomuse will be. It will be in November, and stay tuned. So thanks very much.
Thank you. Bye, everybody. Thank you.
Bye.